Okay, perfect. There we go. Okay, so welcome to Rune Reading Class 1, learning the Elder Futhark runes. So as you learn here today that there's a number of different runes that have been created. The Elder Futhark are the most common, and they actually consist of what's called 3 ayets, and there's 8 runes per ayet, so it's a total of 24 runes. And we'll get into what that all means, but there's 24 runes, and those also correlate to our present day alphabet, as it is the founder of all the letters that have created everything in this world and all the languages that use those letters to date. So it's pretty amazing. There is historical roots that run all the way back to show the path of where the language was created and where its origins were. So it really is quite amazing, because a lot of people wonder, well, what are the runes, or what are the purpose of the runes? And most people see it as a divination tool these days, but it was always a divination tool, but to communicate and ask for advice and ask for answers to solutions to questions that you have about making things better in your life, about increasing your happiness, your wealth, everything that you needed. So they would consult the runes, and these were carved into stone originally, and the runes have lasted thousands of years. So what's really nice to know is when you are doing the runes and doing readings, there'll be some people that, it almost sounds like a make-believe thing to them. Like, oh yeah, the Vikings, almost as though, it wasn't a real thing. It kind of just seems superhero-like. Or one of those stories, or legend. But it's actually all in the entire language, written all the way through, traced right through to ancient tablets, and everything has locations and an entire revealing of how that came about. So it is a real thing. That was the origins of the language. You can learn more about it as you get into it, as there is a number of different rune sets that were made. However, these are the original 24 that were used the most. So what's going to be really interesting, and this is, we're going to learn to write your name with an alphabet and its meanings as well too. So you'll learn them as the runes and create your own name sigil with the runes and the meaning. And it will also show you hopefully more insights onto your own creation yourself and what you create while you're here. Anything to add there, Georgina?
Well, what I was actually going to say is I like to call them, like, it's Old Norse, but it's also considered Old English because of the way we're learning and the alphabet that's there. So you should go into a little bit about the history of them, maybe Odin.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Well, in the history of the Norse mythology was the original creation story. So in the original creation, in the beginning, there was fire and fire and ice collided and created Ymir, which was the land of the giants. And within that, there was the sun, Sol, and the moon, Mani, and they were created. And there was 5 major entities that were created as well, 2 of which were Bestia and Bor, and they became Ve and Vila, and they created Odin, the great Allfather. So Odin, a man, is born into the world. Loki was also created, and he's created as a as a trickster, as they say, so it's been noted, and created entities in the underworld, one of which was named Hell. So that's where the later Christians would start to create their stories from. But this is much earlier. So Odin connected with at least 9 deities, such as Freya and Frigg and Thor and Gunlu, Rind, Grid, and his parents being Bestia and Bor also made him a god from the great giants. So he was almighty. So while they were there, Odin wanted to make things better for everything. So he was always on a quest for knowledge, even sacrificed his eye for knowledge and to receive this divine information to help himself and the people around him.
And he was actually very intrigued by the fates, the fates and their power. So from where he was, he could watch them and he could see this power that they had and this knowledge. And he knew that they were tapping into something. So he wanted to have that enlightenment.
Yeah, and that brings us to the tree of Yggdrasil, which is a tree that they were all around. And the tree also had Asgard, which is your higher realm beings, and Midgard, which was your middle world where everybody, lives. And then there was what would be, your lower worlds in a sense, except they were more, underworld. There were elves and fairies and hell and slightly different than, of course, how it's been described, of course, but there's these underworld areas which have the gnomes and the fairies that were created. And also upon creation, there was also a cow created, which is the first of the runes, which will come to soon. And this full nurturing cow was created with the nurturing milk. So sustenance was there for mankind, womankind, humankind. And there was gods and goddesses that were almighty, infinite giant beings.
So just like the world tree in many different cultures, there was like the upper kingdoms and the middle and the underworlds. And actually there was 9 worlds of the Norse mythology that they believed in. And Norse mythology has an expansive universe that has amazing creation stories. And there were gods, there were elves, there were giants, there were dwarfs, there were dragons, and much more. And many of you know that I teach about many of these different types of beings and their worlds. And those are also connected to us and our world. That's a power that the middle world can connect to. So these creatures, they live in a universe made up of 9 worlds that are all connected to the huge tree of life. And each one of these worlds have specific features, right? There's certain inhabitants, and all of these have an important role in the Norse mythology, right? And the history of the runes. So there is the home of the gods. There's the realm of the bright elves, the realm of the giants, the realm of the humans. There's the realm of the fire giants. There's the realm of the dwarfs, the realm of ice and dark mist, and the realm of the dead. So all of these powers are also combined within the belief system and the powers that were also connected to the runes. So put that into your mind when you're connecting to the runes this next week until we meet again, right? So that world tree is what links all the worlds together, even our world. And the root of the tree are found in 3 of the 9 worlds. And they are actually connected from three separate wells. The first is the realm of which the is it the giants? The well from which gains life. The second is the root that is found in the home and the realm of the gods. And then there's a rainbow bridge. And that was used by the gods to travel between the realms and the worlds. And other creatures like the dwarfs or the giants couldn't use the rainbow bridge.
Yeah. And the tree of life is there in the center, and Odin wants more knowledge of how he can do more for humankind around him. And he impales himself with a spear and hangs himself up from the tree of life and stays there for 9 days and 9 nights, staring into the pool below him. And after the 9 days and 9 nights, he receives a vision. And in that moment, the language and shouts out and receives the ruins as they are created today. Yes, he'd already done that. Yeah, this was.
And speared himself.
Yeah.
And think about that, because in magic, we release things to receive insight. Right? As we release, we receive. That's why we do a release at the different full moons or when we do different rituals.
Yeah.
But he was guided to do that. He felt that Asgard, right, told him to sacrifice his eye for wisdom.
Yes.
So he felt he was following his guidance and sacrificed himself, the old him, for the new.
Mm-hmm. And then did receive more wisdom.
Yeah.
And it was given into the other world. So even though we see that as him just being out without his physical eye loss, that still was a magical part of him that was then passed and carried into the other world, still, helping maintain things in balance. Even when you see yin and yang, there's a little bit of each in both. So that was part of the weaving of the original, fates. And so the Narns, the three Narns, the three fates, guarded the base of the tree, and they would carve into the tree the destiny of everybody. And so that's.
And the power of that would go into the different worlds. And that's how they would communicate with all those 9 worlds. So that tree of life is significant because it symbolizes life and knowledge and fertility and the ability to regenerate and also create. And it was also the one piece that held all of the worlds together, making the universe whole.
Yes. And so the ruins, when they're originally created, sound and mnemonic sounds were the birth of all universe and creation and manifestation. And your sound that you emanate from your mouth is a creative force that's creating everything, not only the visualization and the concept and perception that you're carrying as you're speaking and bringing it into reality, but also your energy that you are saying and speaking these words right into and creating something that is not there, and then it is there when you're speaking it out into the world, manifesting. So you are constantly a creative force. When the first languages and words and commands came out, these were all divine gateways and connected to divine spirits for guidance and for proper manifestation into the world for the betterment of all, was the original concept. So when you're asking a question of something, do no harm for the betterment of all, what can I do to make things better? You'll receive this guidance. And it's available there to you as you use the runes. And as you connect with each of the runes, you'll be connecting with these gateways and you'll receive that information. You'll be able to either see it or receive a visual or hear it, the guidance come through. And then you're connecting for help for yourself and others. You can offer readings. You can just use it for yourself or guidance and decisions that you're making in your life. But that is why the ancients used it as well. When they were going into battle or into war, they would all gather with their armies and their war being ready for battle. And then they would go to the center and cast the rune. And if that rune said war, they would battle. And if it said not to have war, they would obey the runes and they would not go to war.
And the other thing is these runes were created. We should go back to when he's hanging. Okay, Odin.
Yes.
Odin's hanging from the tree. It took him 9 days. So in 9 days, that means he actually hung over a week, right? So he doubled 2 days.
Yeah, impaled on the tree.
What I mean? Like he had to go through Tuesday twice, maybe. So to me, it was like a whole cycle of a week. So within 9 days is when he received the vision of the runes. The entire alphabet came to him. And that's how this came into being. And he was taught those runes and how to work with them. And I find it really interesting that most of our alphabet has come from this, right? Yeah, so the Fates did use the runes at the roots. They would carve it in. So carving the roots is important. And some of the things that were important were the association with Odin, right? The runes remind you that everything still needs to be done. Everything can have a new beginning, but be different every time. Right? And some of you are in the tarot course, and that's the same thing when we do the readings. Every time we look at it, it's a new vision. So they were used every day, like a blank page. And you could find what willpower or power you were tapping into so that you could reach your true, authentic, happiest potential. Right? So Odin was the one that came up with this vision.
Yeah, he saw the ruins burning in fire, and which each one received the impression of their meaning. And the first original ruins were also known for the mnemonic value, which is the same as the notes in our music system that creates all of our music that everybody listens to. So those original sounds were also connected to manifestation of everything that was spoken.
Saying the runes is actually one of the most magical part of it, like carving them or using them or seeing them in nature. But saying it was how they used it in the old times. And that's because when we say it today, we actually connect to these ancestral streams, right? Imagine these streams. And whenever we speak it, those streams actually can affect our blood. It can actually activate our blood and our ancestral flow. And when we do that, that ancestral blood also has talents for us. There's a spirit, or in our breath when we say it, right? It passes on to us. And we go into that connection and that channel. So the magical aspects of the runes is what I love about it, because we can carve them on candles. We can use them to communicate with the dead. We can communicate and receive strength. We can empower things with them. Saying them, we create power, right? And yeah, exactly. This was the first language, and it's amazing. The first phonic language, right?
Mhm. And also, what I love is that it is written in stone and it is a traceable history, and that the ruins have been passed down through timeless generations. Inscriptions have been found going back at least 3,000 years, back to Sweden, Norway, Germany, Denmark, Central Europe, Finland, England, Britain, Ireland, and there's prehistoric rock carving ruins. So they're spread out all along the Viking trails. And there's, for over 2,000 years, the Germanic tribes used the original 24 letter rune system all over the world. It was called the Elder. So now it's Elder Futhark is what we're calling a 24 letter system. And that was the language. That was the language tool. It was created by travelers. So you'll see them all over museums in different areas around the world, carved into wood or stone or metal or bone. And they would carry them as protective charms for travel, to ask for guidance and safe passage by the gods. And it took many forms, but the alphabet was always done in the rune carving.
Yeah, because Rune was the sigil, right? It was the power. Not only did they use them for protection from harm when they were traveling, but they used them to prevent the walking dead to come to them. So when you carry a rune, they believed it was like the light force, the power of the gods, that, these darkness could not get through. And they would use them to acquire love, or for wealth and health, cursing enemies, or breaking evildoers. They would use it to purify objects, or to enchant objects. But they would actually use it so that they could see what type of psychological state they had to put themselves in when they were using it to connect to that place of that rune. So that's one thing that I found interesting, right? Is they believed that it was an infinite power. So these runes were an ancient inscription to the ancients, and they were executed in a traditional way, where for us it's like, it seems so out of this world, the spiritual thing, but this was actually the way that they used it. And they were known as rune masters, right? And it was quite different from what we know today. Like the information of the runes are very sparse when it comes to what's out there.
Yeah, there's lots of information that's out there that's being put together more and more, but the alphabet was widely used until the Roman Christian takeover, that was converting all the writings into Latin and then replacing the 24 runes. So there was a Swedish writer as well that converted it to Latin during the changing pagan times. And Northern Europe, the Scandinavian language was deeply affected by the Anglo-Saxon missionaries, and they made changes in about 1100. So Christianity replaced the 24 elders right from the start, as soon as they started making their changes. And then there's been many variations from there. But the runes were still used in carvings. You've seen right up in the 1600 AD in Denmark. And these are all pre-Christianity carvings that go way back. And there was another one in England called, for a shorter period of time, it was a 33 letter. It was called the Younger Futhark in 770 AD. So there was another set in England there that you'll see there's some runes. Most are similar, but there is some variance. It's interesting when you look at the meaning of the runes and how that came about. So you can still see how the cultures would change form, but continue on to carry the meaning in their new form. So there's also a German scholar, Little Wolf, who converted the roots of the Greek alphabet, and also a Gothic translation. that occurred that was solidified and used for quite a time. So this language system has been around and used by crossing cultures, throughout the history of the world that we have right now. So the original symbols, as you go through and you look, the ancient Germanic languages, and they're Proto-Germanic tribes. So pre-modern Germany, as it stands as far as borders, it's Proto-Germanic tribes that carried knowledge. And there's records of the Viking language and also of the travels. They're going back to 2220 BC. And they were still being used in the Viking Age in the 1100s. So there's over 3,000 years of carvings that we have lots of information on. So it's really interesting. There's areas you can go. There's local areas right here in Canada and Newfoundland. The Viking Trail came all up the east coast of the United States and Canada. There's artifacts in Ontario and Leif Erikson statues up in Newfoundland and Lanceau Meadows. So there's a lot of history right here in Canada. And the Vikings lived peacefully with the Native Americans, and they cohabited for a long time before things, before all the wars started. So
yeah, I believe like there's even proof of it before the written history.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah, well, Native American days go back over 10,000 years here, and even further. That's just some of the localized areas. Yeah, so quite a history of mankind, and still the letters we're using today. We're still putting them together. So as you go through and you learn it, you're going to find something that you really connect to. They also show you ways of being and ways of manifesting, and blocks and challenges and how to overcome, because it really is a self-change system. It really is a step-by-step pieces of wisdom that help you conquer life's challenges and receive guidance and answers and take appropriate action.
It was meant to be an everyday system, something that was used every single day.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was also used as gravestones and travel markers. You'll see there's over 2,500 standing rune stones recorded. And there's over 5,000 road inscriptions of rune stones through Greenland and Constantinople, North America, Nova Scotia. So there is a lot of history with these letters of this language. And so now you can learn to not only write your name with this by the end of this class today and find out the meanings of each of the letters and the manifestations it's carried. It's going to help you connect with some of the powers that you carry specific to yourself, your gifts.
And you'll be able to read some of these old things that, if you're traveling, all of a sudden there's this Old Norse thing and you're like, oh, I know what that means. So there's a little bit of difference when it comes to speaking it. And for example, like G is usually sound as in get, right? Or gar for a G as in giant. So some of the things that you're going to learn, you want to practice saying it until you're comfortable. But this week, we're going to meet on the 20th. This week, you do want, until we meet again, you do want to focus on saying it. You always want to say it 3 times. But you do want to invoke these different things. And the other thing that we want you to do is do your names. So I'm just going to go to our PDF that we have. Where is that I sent? Okay, so there's some flashcards on there. And through the class, yes, you are going to be casting runes. So if you do have a rune set, that's awesome. Because in the class, you are going to learn how to cast the runes. But while we're learning and connecting to them, you may say the flashcards are the best because you have them right there. You can carry them on. So there's flashcards for you to fill out. You can make your own as well. And you'll see that we also have all of the translation on how to say the different runes. So do you want to go through the names of them and just the one word we have on that so they can get started on it? Of course, each rune has a million different meanings. But just to get you started on this week and connecting to them personally is really what we want you to do. We don't really want you to focus on doing readings yet because we want to go into the teachings of each one of these runes. So this week it's about saying it and also connecting to the simple basic meaning of the exercises that we have you to do, and also inscribing, writing with them, and creating words of power.
Yeah, definitely. And with the ruins here to start off with, so the 24 ruins, there are 3 ayats, they're called, which are sections of 8. And the first ayat, which is known as Freya's ayat.
And we're not going to get into those right now.
Yes.
Because each class is going to be a different ayat.
That's right.
So just go over the phonics that we have.
Okay. The phonics that we have. All right. Well, okay. So the first rune is Fehu. All right. And it is Fehu. And as you say it repetitively to yourself, you can go into a chant until it relaxes. You want it so that your throat starts to relax, so that your mind starts to relax, and so that you're not in the masculine or feminine. You're kind of balanced in between the both of your thinking. And also you need to be listening to yourself, but also listening to hear as well. So it's really about continuing to do this chant.
They say when you say it the third time, you'll get that like you'll get that deepness in your throat. You'll hear the spirit come through. And that's why you want to say it a minimum of 3 times.
And you're focusing and calling and asking to connect to Fehu. You're asking Fehu to be there to help you, to give you divine assistance. Now, Fehu is the first rune and of all nourishment. So it's a great rune to start with, to connect with your runes. We're going to go through the sound, but another thing to connect with your runes and you first start right now is to carry that Fehu with you. And you can put it under your pillow. You can carry it with you all day, hold it, chant it, ask for it. And Fehu will give you answers to, wealth.
Yeah.
It represents the cow and cattle and the nourishment in your life. And the way to do it. So, Fehu. 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 And you call and you can state your request mentally. They'll know right away it's carried. You're carrying exactly what you're feeling and opening that gateway and it's being answered.
And now, the belief of Fehu is that wealth is a comfort to all, that everybody should be able to bestow it freely if they wish to gain that honor and that sight of the power of the gods.
Yeah, definitely. But there's that infinite abundance. You're asking for that right now. And then we go to the next rune, Urez. Some people say Uruz. And there are a couple different variations. So if you're saying it one way and somebody says, oh, I say it this way, that's great.
There are Celtic, Germanic, like there's
real difference in some pronunciations and in some linguistics.
Yeah.
And but you're tapping into the same connection. So, and this is also a gateway as well too of receiving an opening and a balance for you. The next one is Thurisaz or Thorisaz. And a lot of people will recognize Thor in there. It is Thor. It is Thor's rune. That is Thor's. It is to overcome all obstacles, anything. The undoable, the impossible is done. So that is Thor, is overcoming all insurmountable obstacles. Thor is there. So
and this is like just to get us started. Like we'll be getting into it deeper in the next few classes as well. But yeah, start using it for that.
Yeah. And as they move through, each one of these have the different letter association. So there's Ansuz, Hagalaz, now this, or now these, Isa or Isa, Jera, Radio, Kanaz, Gabo, Wunjo, Iwas, Perthro, Algies or Algiz, Sawilyu, Tiwas, Burkano, Iwas or Awas, Manaz, Laguz, Ingus, Dagaz, and Othala. So that is the pronunciation of the runes. Of course, like I say, there's a little variance. Now, as you go through, each one of these will have a corresponding letter to them as well, too. Some of them have a double letter. Some of them act for 2 letters. Some overlap a bit, and over time, you'll see in history where it kind of changed. However, we've got it's a pretty clear guideline for it here. So, yes.
Yeah, so you'll see that there's a worksheet where you can write out your name. So you want to write out your name. And when you're doing this, it is good to get comfortable to write the runes. Like you can write your full moon paper. You can do full spell ritual work. Most people can't write or read rune work. So if you wanted to do a full book of shadows and learn the rune alphabet, that'd be awesome, right? So you want to get comfortable with scribing the rune. And as you're doing that, say it 3 times. So what we want to do is you want to write your name in the runes, and then you want to decipher the meaning from what we have there. But not only do you want to decipher the meanings, each one of those letters in your name are going to have a different power. You also want to take it further and combine that to create a message. Okay? So there's a 3-step decipher. Your name, the meaning of each letter, and then what's the message with each combination. So you'll see that in the first one. Then in the second page, do your family. Write the names of your family. What is their power? And then decipher the message. And then see if you can actually recognize that characteristic or those powers in them. And you can, of course, do other words of power or affirmations this week. And do that. You'll also see I put a rune puzzle. It's kind of fun on there, but you'll be able to put together a little message. What is that message? And whenever you see those 2 dots, you'll see 2 dots, sometimes it's 3 dots, that represents period. Okay, so you want to read the 2 dots, separate the words. So every time you see the 2 dots, a new word begins. Okay, so a little fun before we dip into some seriousness with those things. Okay, but yeah, I want you to visualize these runes and work with them until we meet again, as if you're tapping into a sacred power, like you're using them to connect to the spirit. And when we start in the next class and go into the first ayat, you will be able to understand more about the reading of the runes. But until then, we want to understand the protective power, how we can tap into them, the persona of them, and actually witness it and connect with them on a personal level. Okay, so we'll go into that.
Yeah, and what's amazing about the runes too is, of course, we're going to go into the rune casting, and we'll get into the 3 rune readings and more extensive readings and layouts when we're doing the rune casting. But the runes are used for magic. They're used for incantation work. You can put all the rune carving into, just like the Vikings would put them into the stone would be usually for decisions when they were casting it for battles. And if they had metal runes, it was for magic or for spears and shields. And if it was gemstones, it was healing. The wood they'd carry as talismans and carry them as protective charms. So the animals, so antler was powerful, and it also connected with the sacred stag. So each of the different ruins were used differently, and some carved right into, even you'll see houses built not only with carvings, but also just like the old Tudor houses, and you see the white with the brown and the different angles. They would do them with different ruins. So you'll see in some of the old English buildings as well too, that they were created as a ruin for their design right in the building.
Yeah, so each one of those runes have a magical power. So we're only going to work with the runes in your name this week, okay? And those magical powers help us when we use them, right? So we can predict the future with runes. We can protect a person against misfortune. We can create different and gain different qualities. We can write down conjurations. So there's lots of different ways that they've been used for everyday use, right? And these magical words were used in relation to what it was that we were enchanting, whether it was curing someone or by protecting from false energy. We can place them under our pillow and heal the healing rune and put it and gain that power. So there's power in your name and the power in others, right? So put that together and see it. And then you also want to watch for omens this week, because these runes you'll see in nature. Many times I'll walk and I watch, you look at the trees and all of a sudden there's Gebu, right? The cross or the X, and it's like, oh my gosh, right? I have wealth coming to me. It's a good sign. So once you know the runes, they will communicate you in nature. And when we see them in nature, that is used for prediction. Okay. So if you see, Gebu on a tree, then that means that's coming. So whenever we see signs in nature, it's to predict the future. And that's how the old Vikings used that. That's how they were able to get the messages from their gods. So the omens are what's awesome. And once you start casting them, whatever flips up or whatever comes about are the omens from the god. So it's looked at like it's a rare spiritual phenomena, like just as powerful as like the solar eclipse. Like that's how powerful it was to the people. So I find it quite interesting. They could use the runes to seduce. There's lots of different stories in history about runes, and myths about the runes, which I find quite interesting as well.
Yeah, and the glowing writings, and you see it portrayed in a lot of movies as well too. So yeah, be pretty cool. And even a lot of the old ancient temples, some of these structures people still can't figure out today how they were built.
So this is what I want you to do. And I know that we have some people that are doing the replay. I want you to write your name in runes. You want to write your name, learn each meaning, and then, like I said, put together the message. So 3-step. Then I want you to use those runes, and it doesn't matter if you have 2 T's in your name. We still want to use those for the next 2 weeks. Then I want you to try your name runes, and I want you to ask questions. What do you want to know from the gods? So ask a minimum of 1 question and pick 3 runes. Then, what is the meaning of each rune? And get your interpretation of the message. Feel free to message it to me as well. So Brett and I can, help you with your interpretation and see what we get, because everybody will read the runes differently. Then the third exercise I want you to do is pick a rune for the day. Okay, only your name runes we're using until we get into the first ayat, right?
Yeah.
So pick 1 rune for the day, and then how did it apply? Okay.
And I'll just shoot through the alphabet here real quick. So Ansu's is A. Burkano is B. Kenaz is C, but will also act as K. Othala. Oh, sorry, where was I there? C, B, okay. Then there's 2 of them here for E, Ethwas, and Ewas. So both of those have an E in it, but the Ewas is more like E, the sound. It's the world tree. So it's kind of has its own separate meaning, and Ewas is like the horse, your chariot ride. So when you go to that, you can see which one you connect with for your letter choice there. Also, the other one here is Fehu, which is the F. And then G is Gebu. And T is Thurisaz, so the Thor rune. Isa or Isa is I. And there we go. Kenaz also goes towards the K. Jera is the J. Laguz is the L. Iwaz is the E. And radio is the R. so will you is S. Chiawaz is T. And then Wunjo is V and W. And Elhaz is Y or Elgies, but Elhaz or Elgies is Y and Z. Also, one to take note on is Ingwaz, which is the ing, can also be used for the Q if you have a Q. So, and the Gibo can also be used for X, even though it's the letter G, it is an X.
One reason why I see it a lot with my name starting with a G.
Yeah.
So you will see your names, your letters in nature. So before we get going, I do want to talk a little bit about that world tree that Odin's hung up on. So the Vikings believed that their world tree was the mighty ash. And we have lots of ash around here. We have mountain ash. Rowan is an ash tree. So if you find a piece of ash, that would be something that would be great to have with your runes or in your home. So the ash tree was known as a world tree. And as I was saying, this tree links all of the 9 worlds together. And each one of these 9 worlds are also connected to the powers within the runes. And because we're going into the first ayat in the next class, I did want to talk a little bit about these different realms because they're quite important. The first root of the world tree was the realm of Nephilim or Nephilim. And this well was something where we could gain the power of life, right? And this is also known as the third root that was found in the realm of Asgard. And Asgard is the realm of the gods. So I want to go a little bit into that realm because, that Asgard was located in the sky and was known as the home of the gods. Odin was the one that was in charge of Asgard. And it was considered to be at the top of the 9 worlds. And each god and goddess had his or her own hall to which he or she would preside over. In total, there were 13 halls that stood in the middle of Asgard. And Asgard was actually protected by a very large wall. And that wall was created by the giant, the master builder. And it connected Asgard to Midgard or Middle Earth. And that was the Rainbow Bridge. So there's a myth about how the walls around Asgard were built. And a giant makes his way to Asgard in disguise and offers to help the gods build the wall. And he does. So this gives him, this will give him the goddess Freya, the sun, and the moon as payment. And they trick the giant into building the wall. And it's when he's close to being finished that they sabotage his plans. So the story is, it talks about what happened between the giants and the gods, right? So it's a common theme in Norse mythology that the giants wanted to take the 4 seasons away from the gods, as well as their ability to reproduce. So within that, there's the realm of Vanir. And Vanir was known as the realm of gods of the earth, gods of the earth and fertility. And it was situated near Asgard, and it was located to be beautiful and full of light. And then there was another realm, the realm of the bright elves. Okay. Oh, so Vanaheim was significant because it was home to ancient gods. Okay. So gods of good faith, right? So Freya was one of the goddesses. Okay. Then there's the realm Elfine, which was the realm of the bright elves. And this was located at the top of the 9 worlds. And it was home to the bright elves. It was very beautiful. It was full of light. And the god Frey was given this realm by the gods when he lost his first tooth. So Tooth Fairy, right? The Tooth Fairy story. So Frey became the lord of Elfheim. And the fact that this god was given a realm by the gods showed how much they really accepted Frey into the world. So the bright elves were said to be beautiful, and they would bring stars and the powers of themselves. So if you saw little sparkles at all or star-like things that moved, those were known to be spirits from the bright elves. Then we have Jotunheim, which was the realm of the giants, and it was thought to be a very deep, dark place. There's forests, there's mountains, and unending winter. And it was given to the giants. It was their new homeland that was for the sons of Bor, the new gods. So there's a lot of different myths about the giants. And there were the frost giants, the mountain giants, and they lived in the great halls. So the giants were actually enemies of Aesir, and many battles were fought in Asgard between the giants and the gods. So the giant realm represents the cold, dark winters and the people of that the people of the north would face, right? So the spirit of the giants. Then we have Midgard, the realm of the humans, our realm, also known as the Middle Earth, and that was home to humans, both men and women. And it was formed by the body of Ymir, a giant. And it was halfway between Asgard and the realm of the giants. And there's a whole creation story about the Middle Earth. It's quite interesting. So Ymir was known to be the first giant, and he was created from fire and ice in the very beginning of time. And one day while Ymir slept, giants came from his armpits, and a troll came from his feet. He like perspired. Okay, so life came from his perspiration. And these were known as frost giants. They were horrible, they were ugly. And when the gods of Odin, Ve, and Vili came to existence, they kept fighting with the giants. Eventually, they killed Ymir and used his body to create Midgard, our Middle Earth. His blood was said to have been formed the seas. His skin became the hills, and his bones became the mountains. And the gods took his eyebrows and made a fence around Midgard that would protect the people from the outside world. And I find that quite interesting because in Canada, we have the sleeping giant, right? Mm-hmm. I just saw today that there was another place, is it on Kingston Peninsula, where there's another view that people say were a sleeping giant, right? The giant in the hills. So our world is significant because it's located between heaven and the realm of the giants, where we exist, and we're not perfect beings. We're not meant to be perfect like the gods, and we're not meant to be monstrous like the giants. We fall somewhere in between. So our world is protected from all outside good and evil. But our humans, us as humans, is what turn out, to be the energy that we recreate. Then we have the realm of the fire giant, right? And so the home of the fire giant, Muspel, is where there's myths and energy. The roles of this place is about creation and destruction of the world. And before the world was created, there was nothing but a void, a land of ice, right? Called Nelheim, which I talked about earlier, and then the land of fire called Muspel. And there, what is it? Nephilim had 11 springs full of poison that flowed and emptied into a chasm. And they would freeze and fill the chasm with this poisoned ice. But Muspel fire came and turned the poisoned ice into mist and fog. And it's funny that we're talking about that because we've been surrounded by mist and fog for weeks. But this fire and ice interacted with one another. And it did this for millions of years. And eventually a spark of life was created through all of these interactions. And that's where the first humans were created.
And the gnomes were born from this as well, too.
Yeah, the cow.
Yes.
So this realm is quite important because it represents the final battle. Okay. And it represents the power of Ragnar, who carried this sword, okay, came in for the final battle, carried his bright sword, and he used it to destroy the Asgard and the rest of the 9 worlds. Now we have the realm of the dwarfs. Nidavellir, I probably said that wrong, but it was a home to the dwarfs. And they have been part of the world tree and the underground realm that's full of labyrinths and mines. And they're known for being master smiths and craftsmen. So people would use different types of runes to connect to different worlds. If you use metal runes or pewter runes, you would most likely connect to this realm. So whether you have bone, rock, wood, those different rune types would be used in the ancient times to connect to, the different realms. So I just wanted to put that in. But this realm of the dwarves is where the gods, whenever the gods needed any weapons or any objects of any importance or sacredness, they would go to Nidavellir to get the dwarfs to make it. So the dwarfs were a race that appeared in many, many myths that were believed in, who created jewels and significant pieces for the gods. And I love that about the dwarfs. I love that. Then we have the realm of the ice and the dark mist, Nephilim. And this was known to be full of cold ice and nights, and it never ended. And it's located at the very lowest point of the underworld. And it's also a source for one of the 3 roots that feed the world tree. So we have a dark, cold place, right? That's feeding into the world tree and into our realm. But it is a crucial realm because it's one of the realms that were said to have existed since the very start of time. It's also the home of the Norse dragon called Nigog. And so the realm of the dragons, right? And we've done, some of you have done dragon magic. And that's where that energy and spirit comes from. Then we have hell, the realm of the dead. Isn't that interesting? That hell in Viking is also hell for Christianity. So hell is the realm of the dead. Hell is a realm for those who have died, either of illness or old age. And it was instantly believed that those who died in battle would not have to go to hell. Hell was said to be found beneath the roots of the great tree, the tree of life. And it's ruled over by a giant called Hell. And the giant Hell was a dark and very sad character. So those are the 9 worlds of the world tree. Just a little brief thing, just to get you a little to know that when we're tapping into these things that come up, there is that awesome mystical, magical, elemental power. The other thing is the stag that we forgot to mention is not only does the world tree have these 9 realms, but they also have animals. And one of them is known to be a stag. There's actually 4 stags, and it's believed that each one of these stags represents one of the seasons. And there's also spirits, other beings and spirits of the world tree that are always trying to hunt these 4 stags to try to destroy one of the seasons. So I find that quite interesting. So yeah, sorry, I kind of went off on that, but I wanted to introduce those realms because, you know, fairies, dwarves, elves, and dragons, you know, it's something that that's one of the reasons why I love, you know, tapping into the runes.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And
awesome.
Yeah, there's a little squirrel in there too helping out, so don't forget about him.
Well, give us a rune for this week, for the next 2 weeks.
All right, so draw a rune. Moonjo, joy. Okay.
Yay, joy.
So that's amazing. So that is actually joy. So use the spirit of joy within you, that happiness. It itself will open doors for you. It's a powerful, healthy, it's the highest frequency emotional state that there is. So it's a good one to have around you while you're tapping into the runes, because the whole goal of using the runes is to improve all areas of your life and receive guidance that makes things easier and overcomes challenges. So joy is amazing. You got to have fun along the way. And Woonjo. So Woonjo.
So we're meant to experience some good joy this next 2 weeks. So what we're going to do is, I know that we don't have a group page for this, so we're going to send everyone the replay, but I would still like you to message me the first 3 runes that you get from your name, because I would like to see what it is what message I get from that. I think that's pretty neat. And, you know, people enjoy that. That is something that I've done before, is I have done rune prints. You can do family names and the meanings. So I've had that on Etsy before, and I've had people do everybody in their name, or everybody in their family, or their family name. So that is something that you can offer as a rune reader as well, right? So I know some of you are artists. And yeah, that's actually a good idea too. So maybe once you see how you do yours, and you connect to it, you'll have fun doing other people's names this week. So we'll let you go. But yeah, let me see your first 3. So the first 3 runes you get from your name. And that's all we're going to use. Have fun. You can play with the other ones, but we're going to delve into the first ayat next class, and then get into interpreting readings and castings.
And if you're going to carry one with you, you can pick any of those, but you can also carry your first letter as well too, and carry it in your pocket if you want to choose one to connect with and take with you throughout the day.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, we'll let you go, and I'll send out the replay tomorrow. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.